Everyone, hope you guys are doing well. This is FPL Fran. We're back here with my Game Week 5 transfer plans. We're going to quickly review my Game Week 4 team, and if you're wondering why the background is different once again, I am on holiday here in Greece enjoying a vacation with the wife, and that's it really, just a 1 week vacation. We'll be back with regularly scheduled programming very shortly, but Game Week 4 wasn't great for me. I got a red arrow somehow. I actually thought I was very comfortably going to have a strong team, going to have a green arrow, but it didn't happen, didn't fall as it did. I think a lot of people had really nice auto sub jam. I had Esri Konsa coming in for João Pedro. What's nice is I did actually get the chance to roll finally, so it felt like for once my team structure was actually quite strong. And I'm actually very happy with the team that I actually ended up with in Game Week 4. But as it turns out, wasn't great. We had a couple issues, and I'll walk through them as we go from goalkeeping to the forward. So with Henderson, yes, once again, another poor performance. And I really feel like, we're starting to see Henderson maybe as last season's Pickford, right? Another sort of defense that we targeted that was actually quite strong on paper, but has actually looked, for the most part, looked pretty poor. And if you are hearing a flight over me, that's because a flight is really just flying just above me. But in terms of the Henderson news, what I would say is, yes, of course, he's been poor. Yes, of course, there's been goalkeepers who scored 15 points, 9 points in cells, gotten clean sheets twice already, for example, with cells. That happens in FPL. And ultimately, if you look at situations like the Sanchez situation, I mean, like, it's more likely that he would have conceded the penalty and simply lost his clean sheet than he would have got 15 points. There are sort of supernatural situations that happen. Bournemouth had lots of chances, and I don't think that that's too dissimilar to the Crystal Palace game, where ultimately they conceded 2 goals from less than 2 xg, and that happens from time to time. I think Crystal Palace have actually started the season okay in terms of expected goals conceded, but have definitely been shocking when it comes to actually letting goals concede, except for maybe the Chelsea game, where they were maybe fortunate to only concede 1 goal there. So that's life. The goalkeeper went wrong. I don't think he's really worth the transfer. He's more of a goalkeeper that I would move off of on a wild card, and I eagerly anticipate for him to repeat what Pickford did last season and maybe get something like 7 clean sheets in a row, just to rub it in my face. But in the defense, we have Lewis and Dunk separately, I suppose. Trent Alexander-Arnold and Konsa. So Trent lost his clean sheet. Rico got subbed off at 45 minutes, but lost his clean sheet anyways. And then Konsa managed to, concede 2 goals very quickly to Everton at home, which was a bit of a shock to me, but that's that. That happens in football. I didn't have a great auto sub compared to some other people's, Gabriel's, the Smith Rose of the world, and even arguably, I guess, anyone really who scored more than 1 point. So in the midfield, I had Rogers, Bruno, Eze, and Saka. Bruno finally delivering something. Rogers, I know a lot of people are upset about Rogers, but I still have to say what I've looked at so far, I've been firmly impressed by. The underlying stats have been good. And it's not just that the underlying stats have been good. It's just about, the faith in the manager so far is still there. He's playing 95 minutes of football. And one thing I can say about Aston Villa is it seems like they're a team that could move very quickly towards playing 2 forwards up top. And I guess the impact that I would be looking forward to in the future is whether actually someone like Rogers will have perfect minutes under that, because we know Champions League is around the corner. We'll find out on Tuesday exactly how things fall for a lot of our teams and players. But the key thing here is I'm going to practice patience with someone like Rogers. I like the positions that he's getting into. I like the chances that he's taking, some of the sort of positions that he's locking up in terms of ability to assist. Yes, of course, he messed up an opportunity to assist Watkins, but at the same time, you can also blame Watkins for 2 or 3 of the assists that he's missed. So I'm not really too fussed about Rogers. I think he still looks like a very good pick. Certainly my favorite 5.0 within the game, or 5.1, 5.2, whatever his price is. Bruno, right now, I'm in an issue where I think what tends to happen with FPL is sometimes you actually look at an asset like Bruno and you think, okay, he's terrible because he's just not delivering points. But then everyone is falling to the wayside. So when I look at the attackers, the midfielders nowadays, my concern is look at the Liverpool midfielders. They've got Champions League coming up soon. They've just come off an international break. Then they'll have to play on the weekend. How many minutes is someone like Jota or Diaz going to play? Bruno's definitely going to play 95 minutes of football on the weekend, and we feel that that's a bit of a guarantee. So that's actually a positive. On the other hand, when I look at some of the other midfielders, we just had Eze losing penalties, arguably to Mateta. Now, Glasner's mentioned that both of them are penalty takers in the team, but you have to say, ultimately, the impact, I would say, is that Mateta's going to take penalties for the foreseeable future when he's on the pitch. And that's a huge dampener to Eze and his sort of projected points. As far as some of the other midfielders, we've lost Odegaard, for example. Bowen, actually, in some of the West Ham assets could be interesting, but for now, I feel like Bruno is someone who might just be a hold for this week. As far as Saka limping off again, that's definitely happened before. I'm not too worried until we see, let's say, him out of the Champions League squad and maybe other significant impacts for this Arsenal team. But for now, I'm pretty comfortable with Saka. In terms of Isak, Haaland, João Pedro. João Pedro, not exactly great news from Fabian. I'm not sure if he's out for 2 or 3 game weeks. We'll have to monitor that situation as it goes. As far as someone like Isak, I don't know what his sort of real situation is. It seems like Eddie Howe, and I waited for the morning to record this video, but Eddie Howe might have suggested that Isak has some sort of eye injury. I read online that there was a broken nose. That doesn't seem like that's the case necessarily. So we'll need to see what the diagnosis is, but I don't think we'll get one because it's Eddie Howe. And so we'll find out whether Isak will play on the weekend, but it probably forces me to want to make a move over Isak, even though he's already dropped in price to 8.4. With Haaland, I mean, what else can I really say? I think he's on an absolutely historic pace. He's played ridiculously out of his mind so far. This is the most ridiculous outcome, I would say, for Haaland owners, and we've been very fortunate. But a lot of people do own Haaland. A lot of people have been stretching their teams towards owning Haaland, and so, of course, that's not going to be a net benefit for my team if all the other players in my team just basically deliver stinking farts. And that's literally what happened this game week, even though the game week was looking good on paper. So, what are my plans for my team going forwards? My team going forwards looks like this. It's effectively a Game Week 5 team that I would say is pretty weak on paper because we have Saka versus Man City, João Pedro with a doubt, and instead of Solanke here, we actually have someone like Isak on the board. So what concerns me with owning Isak is ultimately he's playing away from home. Newcastle still haven't looked very good. The away performance versus Wolves was pretty poor, I'd have to say. More so on defense once again, but then also just looking at the chances, I don't think they were particularly good even before Isak was subbed off. So the reality is, I'm okay to just sell Isak for now and to just move on with my life. The option and why I had Solanke previously was because I was actually considering if I was not to wildcard for whatever reason, and I was just to make one transfer with my team, I think I'd be quite comfortable if I was not going to wildcard on 6 to just go for the Solanke move. But this is a bit of an outside shout, right? So the reason why I was actually considering this Solanke move here is simply because Solanke is someone who is very, very strong for Game Week 5. His fixtures after that are actually relatively above average. So I think ultimately, as a bit of sort of in and out transfer, it's very, very strong. Isak, as we know, has a poor Game Week 6. He's versus Man City there. We also don't know what his situation is. So actually, Solanke is a very strong move there. And that gives me enough money to make some really serious moves, right? I can consider things like Bruno to Palmer. I can consider things like maybe Winks to Mbumo. And I think that's the flexibility that the Solanke move provides to me, which I think is very strong from a Game Week 5 perspective. So that's why I'm considering Solanke here, just as the sort of one in, one out move for this game week if I was not to wildcard. But the reason why I've been actually very keen on wildcarding on Game Week 6 is because I do think that there's still a little bit of upside to be had here if I move towards Salah. One of the issues, though, towards moving towards Salah is that it does make me move out of Saka as well. So if I, let's say, choose to go back to Isak for now, who's on my team, and I stick with this structure right here. Clearly, if I was to make no moves this week, I would have Haaland as a captain. But by moving Saka to Salah, I basically get rid of Saka's worst fixture. I don't lose any transfer value over someone like Bukayo Saka for now. I go Salah in the team, so we can bring Salah back into the fray here, ultimately. And then I could actually also go out of Isak into someone like Jamie Vardy. So what I've been considering actually for my wildcard 6, and I think this is the strongest move that I have on the table here for wildcard 6, is to actually go 2 free transfers, use no hits taken, Saka to Salah, get rid of the Man City fixture for Saka, and then actually go from Isak to Vardy, who actually has a really good home fixture here versus Everton at home. We know that Everton are probably going to have Braithwaite back, and we'll find out, I guess, because there's going to be, I think, a cup match on Tuesday for Everton. So we'll find out whether Braithwaite is maybe a part of the squad. Maybe he's ready to actually play going forwards. But Everton have looked really poor, and this is an away game for Everton. So I think we've seen Everton be a very strong defense. I don't think that's necessarily changed too much, even though they've literally been conceding 3 to 4 goals every single match to start the season. But when the fixtures get easier, I imagine that's going to drop, despite the sort of drop in performances, even after they're 2-0 up versus most of their opponents. But jokes aside, I mean, reality is this is a good fixture for Vardy. He's been playing much more minutes than I actually expected. And I think casting my mind back to, what I talked about in the cheat sheet a few weeks ago, I was sort of putting out the doubts of whether Vardy was someone who was actually going to play very consistent minutes, given his age, given the sort of physicality of the Premier League, the pressures of it. But he's very clearly met the demands. He's got 2 goals so far, had great chances, for example, even just thinking about the Tottenham game, scored as well last game week or game week 4. And hopefully with another 90-minute performance versus Everton, I think that's a very, very good sort of 1 game week option here. And that also leaves me with Esri Konsa on the bench, which, once again, I'm not planning to play Konsa, but if João Pedro's out once again, I don't think that there's a huge sort of loss here on the table if I simply just play someone like Esri Konsa within my team. So if Esri Konsa auto subs on, that's okay for João Pedro. Otherwise, I think hopefully João Pedro's ready to play. And actually, I have a very, very strong team for this game week, with exception to maybe Henderson. So that's what I was actually planning. And in this situation, I would clearly plan for a Saka captaincy, or rather, sorry, a Salah captaincy. And that means Haaland vice captain. I think this is still prospectively the better option. It's Bournemouth at home. Clearly, both teams are at home, but I have to give some respects to Arsenal defense. And this is what I was talking about a few weeks ago, where, Arsenal defense have clearly won. In terms of the owners who've actually moved into Arsenal, they were on pace last season to get around close to one clean sheet per every 2 game weeks. So far, they've had 3 out of 4 in matches versus Brighton, Aston Villa, Spurs, and Wolves. Right, so they've actually only not gotten a clean sheet when they were actually down to 10 men versus Brighton. So prospectively, we could actually talk about an Arsenal team that could be on 4 clean sheets. And I don't know what world that would have been. Probably a world where I would be actually 2-3 million ranked in the world, I suppose. But that's that. Ryan Gabriel have gotten a boatload of points, and that's fair play to the managers. But I hope that when I jump on Arsenal, they provide similar results, but I highly doubt that that's the case. But that's life, right? So here I am looking at my team. I think it's very strong for Game Week 5. This is a complete dead end. There are other options too to Vardy. So the only thing I would say is that there's Calvert-Lewin, once again, who's very interesting. There's also, and he actually has higher expected points, but I wonder if that's because the AI algorithm probably has different minutes as expectations for Calvert-Lewin compared to someone like Vardy. There's also the option of potentially someone like a Danny Welbeck. The reason why Welbeck is quite interesting is because we know that if João Pedro's out, ultimately I'm bringing in the next player within the team who's going to be the penalty taker for the team. That could be another option as well, but I suppose we'll find out because Evan Ferguson actually stepped on as a substitute within that game versus Ipswich. And so we'll find out whether, we'll see less Welbeck minutes. But I still think that Welbeck starts the next game week for sure. Jorginho Rutter also got his start, but it was still a pretty tame game by Brighton standards. They had 21 shots, I believe, and didn't amass that much XG, just didn't take their chances though at the same time. And ultimately Ipswich sort of left with a clean sheet away from home, which is really impressive. So definitely one to monitor when it comes to someone like Leif Davis, but that's the team for this game week. Let me know what you guys think about my options. Do you guys think I should go for a wildcard 6? The 2 free transfers here on display, as I said, something like a cheap forward in replacement of Isak, and then actually Saka to Salah, and then bring Saka back into my team for a Game Week 6 wildcard. Or do I just simply go and maybe go towards wildcard 8, go towards another international break where we maybe could get more significant injuries once again, more doubts, more sort of travel issues, and maybe just deal with the wild card then, where I just go for Solanke instead? Or do you guys like this move, the 2 free transfers, as I said, Salah, and let me know which forward you want me to go for, Vardy, Calvert-Lewin, or Welbeck, and why. But that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the transfer plans. As I said, we will have to watch the Champions League first. I'm not planning to make any moves before the Champions League. Isak has dropped in price. Bruno might drop, but I don't really care. At this point, he's probably someone that I unfortunately have to hold within my team, I feel. Saka and Salah, there's obviously the questions of, Salah just blanked. Saka continues to be a beacon of consistency, but he's versus Man City next. So my expectations are very, very low. So I don't really mind just simply jumping on Salah for 1 week and then hopping off effectively on Game Week 6. And that's sort of what I have on my mind. With Trent, I did mention that for a lot of people who said that Trent was probably one of the most broken defenders in the game, yes, he is, but he also has a price point to it, and Liverpool aren't guaranteed a clean sheet every match. So I do feel like for a lot of people who've stretched towards Trent, this was sort of the logic that I was saying as a Trent owner myself, that I don't think that he's absolutely essential within the game. Him playing 90 minutes was a huge confidence boost, though. But, ultimately, we finally found a Liverpool result where, with 3 game weeks of information, we probably would have crowned them as the best defense in town. But maybe we've changed our opinions on that, and maybe it's back to Arsenal. So I feel like this is the beauty of playing FPL at the start of the season, sort of reevaluating things very quickly, and just understanding that, okay, you might have a good team on paper, like I did for myself, I would say, for Game Week 4, but it doesn't deliver. But that doesn't mean necessarily that I need to throw the team into the bin immediately. It's just about, once again, not swaying your logic unless something has given a reason to change your logic. So, for example, injuries. That's a true change in logic. Other issues would be things like tactical changes. But really, none of my players have mostly been affected with exception to, I would say, Rico Lewis, who there was a bit of a different formation because I think this was clearly the game where Pep chose to give minutes to Walker, to Stones, to Gundo. These are all players who needed minutes. Even Foden arguably needed some minutes, at least coming off the bench. But there's some interesting sort of things to look at for Man City in the future. And so when I'm thinking about a Game Week 6 wildcard, players like Savio are firmly on my mind. I think he looks brilliant so far, and we know that he can play both flanks. So these are kind of things that I'm looking at towards the future and why I'm also planning a Game Week 6 wildcard. I guess the question is, have we accumulated enough information within the Premier League so far to be able to create a wild card that's a little bit more long lasting? Because one of the issues that I had when I was even drafting Game Week 4 wild cards or Game Week 3 wild cards is thinking about things like Lewis. How nailed is he exactly? I couldn't quite put an answer to that, and I feel like Game Week 5 has put, or Game Week 4 rather, has put another spanner into the works of that with a 45-minute substitution and Champions League to follow, because we could see more Rico Lewis minutes in the future, and I feel like that Arsenal game is a great test. So my hopes are that with Game Week 5 as information, with Champions League as additional information, that even if I make 2 free transfers this week and ultimately go on a wildcard 6, that I would be happy with the team that I eventually create on Game Week 6, and that could last us for quite a long time. So those are my thoughts right now in terms of my transfer plans. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care and goodbye.